What's up, guys? This is Casey Underhill bringing you a Blender tutorial for today. It's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. It's going to be a tree, and we're going to do it hand model style. A lot of people like to use the sapling generator, where you basically just hit Shift A, curve. Is it curve? Is it mesh? I don't remember. Maybe I don't have it in my new version of Blender. Anyways, a lot of people like to use the sapling generator, and I find that while it does give nice results, it doesn't give very interesting trees, and I like my trees to be very, very interesting. So, I'm going to show you how to make much more interesting trees today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to just go and delete that cube, and we're going to delete that lamp. And if you want those little lines gone, I already have it saved that way, but if you want them gone, this little button right here, get rid of those. And let's see, I think everything else is set. So if you hit N, that's going to bring you into your menu here so that you can go down to, I am in my screencast keys for some reason. We want a background image. And let me go ahead and add a new image and open. And let me find it here. Which one? Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to hit 1 and 5 on the numpad. That's going to bring me to my front view, and it's going to bring me to orthographic view to see my image. And as you can see, it's just a drawing of a dead tree. This is, I guess, the easiest way to hand model a tree is to find a tree, picture or drawing that doesn't have the leaves. You don't want the leaves because we're going to need to see all of the details of all of these branches. It's going to be very important. So if you just go to Google and type in dead tree drawing, something like that, you'll find a lot of very interesting, unique trees, and you can see all the branches really easily. Now I went with a drawing. Some people prefer to go with an actual photograph. I thought the tree looked really nice. It gives me this kind of flow that I'm looking for, but also you don't have to worry about light and shadow or picture quality. So we can really get deep on these branches. We can really see every curve to them and every little detail. We don't have to worry about like shadows covering anything. Anyways, I'm talking a lot, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put my 3D cursor at the base of my tree. I'm going to Shift A, add mesh, circle. And I already have this set to 22 vertices. I think by default it's set to 32. 22 is probably more realistic. You don't want to make too much geometry, and by the time we're done with our image, we will have a lot of geometry. So be aware that if you want your tree to not kill your computer by the time you're done, make sure that you lower the vertices down on that circle. Anyways, I'm going to put this down just a little bit lower than where the actual tree starts, just to make sure that I'm going to get that into the camera. And I just rotated it just a little bit just to get about the right orientation of the tree. And now I'm going to tab into edit mode and I'm going to extrude right about here. I'm going to hit Z. That's going to bring me my wireframe mode so I can see through the object and see what I'm modeling. And I'm actually going to shrink this down a little bit because I'm not going to include this little branch sticking out right here. I might come back and do that later, but for right now I don't want that in my tree. So I'm basically just extruding, rotating, and scaling. That's all I'm really doing here. Extruding this, scaling it down, rotating it around a little bit, making sure that you follow the orientation of the branches from your reference image. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be super fantastic. You will see by the time this tutorial is finished how it's going to turn out. And as long as you get pretty much the right orientation for everything, it's going to end up looking like a tree. You don't really need to follow the guides too closely. I tried to the first couple of times I tried to do this image long time ago, maybe a year ago, something like that, and it takes a very long time to do this. It's a long process to make hand modeled trees. So if you came into this project hoping for just a quick, simple little tutorial that was going to give you amazing results in 5 minutes, This is not that tutorial, but it gives you much more interesting trees, like I said, as opposed to the sapling generator, which really just gives you kind of small options to kind of tweak your tree, give it a couple little curves here and there. So here at the edge of my picture, some of these branches go off the edge, so I'm just gonna kind of take a little guess. I'm gonna end my branch right there, and then with these vertices selected, I hit F to make a face so that you can see it is closed at the end. So we have our first main branch, and what you want to do, I should have mentioned this earlier, is you want to basically pick from the trunk to the end of a branch and just follow that all the way through. Don't worry about any of these other branches yet. We're going to add those here in a second. So secondly, I want to go with this branch. It doesn't matter what branch you go with next, but it probably shouldn't be one up here. It's got to be something connected to your main tree trunk here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control and left click, and that's going to lasso around these edges. And I'm going to Shift D to duplicate it. I will rotate it, get about the right orientation of it. And I'm just going to keep extruding like I did for the other branch. Now you can make these a little bit closer loop cuts if you want, or you can make them a little further apart. It depends on how detailed you want your tree to be. It really, I don't know, sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't. And we're getting closer. As you can see, I didn't quite follow that line there. It's not a huge deal. As long as you get the tree branches basically where they're supposed to be, you don't have to make anything super fancy. Don't make more work for yourself than you have to. So I'm just going to scale that in, bring that around, scale it down, bring this around, scale that one down. Like I said, this is a very long process, and unfortunately I'm probably not going to get to show you all of this. I'll probably just do a fast forward because this is such a long process, but I want to show you the basics so that you know exactly what you're getting into. Okay, so anyways, we finished this second tree branch here, and I'm going to show you how to connect it. So as you can see, it is floating over a couple of faces on the main branch. So I'm going to go to my face select mode, and I'm just going to select those faces that it looks like it's floating over. Maybe one more on this side. Once I have those faces selected, so that it looks like this piece will connect into this, I'm just going to delete those faces. And then I'm going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to hold Alt and right click. That's going to give me that whole bottom circle there. And then I'm going to hold Alt, Shift, and right click this one. That'll give me that whole opening there. Now I'm just going to hit W and Bridge Edge Loops. Boom! We have our connected branch. So another good idea while you're making this tree is to split the area on your screen and go, actually we want 3D view. I'm just going to hit T, that's going to hide my toolbar, and I'm going to go to my top view. And a good practice when you're making these trees, unfortunately, when you make them, they're going to be very 2D. You can see the branches, they don't move on the y-axis, they're all on the x-axis. And we don't have a picture of this same tree from the y-axis, so we're going to have to take a couple of guesses, which is fine. But we're going to go back to vertices select mode. I'm going to select just the end of these vertices here. And in this screen, I'm going to turn proportional editing on. And it's set to smooth. Sometimes you might have to play around with that to get the right setting, but for the most part, you're going to be just using smooth. I'm going to scale this up right about there somewhere. And I'm just going to start. Actually, let me move that on the y-axis only. Let's see. Now let's actually just move this around. Now let's move it on the y. It's up to you. Unfortunately, when you move it on the y, you do get some stretching, so make sure that you don't move it too far. You're just trying to give it the illusion of having a like a y value, really. But we're going to come back over to this side, select that vertice, and we're going to do the same thing over here. And we're obviously going to have to readjust our circle to make sure we're only moving that top branch. And I'll move this one forward on the Y. When you do move it on the Y-axis only, if you restrict it to the Y-axis, it'll still line up with your main image. So you can see, even though I've moved these forward and backwards, they still line up perfectly with my main image. So unfortunately, if you don't move it with the Y and you move it on all the axes, it will not line up with your picture anymore. You're going to have to take a lot of guesses on where your branches are going to go. So anyways, I guess I don't need that area anymore. So you can see we're starting to get a little bit more interesting patterns going forward and backwards. So I just want to add in, I don't know, one more branch maybe, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So make sure everything's unselected. And let me tell you, sometimes you select a vertex out here and you start working on it, you're moving it back and forth on the y-axis, you'll come back in and select your next branch and you will duplicate these vertices. So make sure that you're hitting that A key and unselecting those vertices. There's nothing worse than getting an hour or two into this project and realizing you've duplicated these vertices all over your tree. Because you pretty much have to start from scratch when you do something like that. Anyways, I'm going to select this loop here. Whoop, we've got proportional editing turned on. Let me turn that back off. Rotate it, scale that down, scale it up just a bit. I'm going to keep extruding and keep rotating. Rotate, scale that down a bit, scale it down, rotate it. And okay, this one's kind of weird because it splits two directions and it really doesn't show any stronger way that it goes. I'm going to probably follow the bottom path. You could follow either path, it really doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're following one specific branching pattern. Let me extrude this again. So the reason I'm not going to show you all of the modeling for this is because it's quite a long process, but it's all pretty much the exact same process. You're just duplicating those rings, extruding, moving them around. Oh, excuse me, guys. It's pretty much all the same thing, and it's really, really, really boring and tiresome to have to watch somebody do this. It's just better to like turn some music on or something and just get in there and do it yourself. So I just want to make sure that you guys have the tools to do this on your own, and then you can always come back and I will have a materials tutorial on this. It's the materials for a hand modeled tree are actually incredibly difficult. So be warned that if you want a very, very good looking tree by the time you're done, the materials, they're not fun. They're not fun at all. Let's pull this one forward, I guess. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and delete those faces again. And let's see. Let's go right about in here. Looks about right. My edge select. Select those W bridge edge loops. And there we have it. And you're going to do that for every single one of these branches, which I know you're thinking right now, are you kidding me? You're doing every single one of those branches? It goes a little faster when you get used to it. Let me do one of these smaller branches just to give you an idea that you do all of the branches, no matter what level they are, you do them all exactly the same way. You're just duplicating those edge loops, extruding, scaling, rotating. It's all the same. There's nothing less complicated than this. This is very, very simple to do. Make a face, and boom. Okay, let me go in here and delete these faces. You always want to kind of delete more faces underneath than what you think you need. That doesn't mean to delete everything, but you want to delete a lot so that you get a nice smooth bridge loop. And there we go. Bridge those edge loops. And I'll just leave that one sticking straight up in the air. Why not? Okay, so anyways, I'm not going to go too much further with this, but you get the idea. This is how you would model the entire tree. And this is what we look like coming out of edit mode. And you think, well, that doesn't really look much like a tree. So first thing we got to do, we got to smooth shade it. That immediately makes it look quite a bit better, right? So if you want to keep it jagged and a little bit low poly, you can do that. However, I find that it looks a little bit better if you add a subdivision surface modifier. And I usually leave it at 1. Unfortunately, 2, it kind of makes these weird, I don't know if you can see that, there's like weird indentations and rings going from the edge loops, probably because there's triangles in there, and we really don't like triangles, but unfortunately we have to work with them on this. But that is pretty much all there is to making a hand model tree. And if you look at the geometry on the inside, the nice thing about these over using a sapling generator that makes it from curves is that you now have faces and you have triangles and you have geometry and you can make loop cuts. You can do whatever you want to this tree, and it's fantastic, right? You have full control over this tree. If for some reason you get to a point where you're like, I'm not entirely certain I want this to be kind of bulged right here, you can just turn on your proportional editing and you can just grab that in there, say maybe, well, I want this to be like a little, like, I don't know, bent out of shape right there, and you can do that. You can just push that right in there. Or let's say you wanted a little hole in the tree. You could just extrude one of these right there, and that makes a little knot in the tree. Look at that. Ah. You could even take these two and extrude them back just a little bit, and then delete these faces on the inside. And watch this. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. I almost deleted something I didn't want to. Face. Face. I'm missing a face still, aren't I? Right there. Face. Okay, so then we'll just go into here. And I'm still missing a face in there somewhere. Aha, that's why. Okay, go back, go back, go back. So I want this to connect with that. And this one with that one. Like that. And look at that. You have like a little hole in your tree. Or if you don't like modeling that way, which I actually don't care for that much, but if you don't like modeling that way, you could always add a multi-resolution. And with the multi-resolution, you could then subdivide it, go into your sculpt mode, and then turn on any of these little brushes that you like and go in here and make little creases and add a little clay here and there. You can go in and make this tree look any way that you want to. It gives you much more control than the sapling generator, and I like this. However, it's very time consuming. I wouldn't recommend using this for a lot of projects. I use this when I have a tree that's going to be straight up in your face, the focus of the picture. I think a lot of people might be able to use this for gaming just because it does have a lot of geometry that the other sapling generator and things like that, they just don't have. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to my other project here that's going to show you how the tree looks when it's completely done. So I'll be back in a second. Okay guys, so this is the finished product that I've created. I've made the tree, and I'm not sure, do I have that up too high? Nope, that's good. Okay, so this is basically what we're looking at. I do see, looks like I need to recalculate my normals. Let me go ahead and do that. There we go. Oh, there's still a branch up here. Ah well, oh well. Anyways, this is what the finished product looks like. And You could just go ahead and texture this if you wanted to and make it a dead tree, which is what I did because I just kind of prefer those. However, we are going to add leaves to the tree, and we will add textures and all that sort of thing. Let me go ahead and show you the leaf part first. This is actually for a different scene. Let me delete that. So this is my leaf. I have basically done nothing to this. I've added a plane, so let me go ahead and show you here. I added a plane. I subdivided it a couple times, not too many, maybe a little bit more, maybe 6, right about there. Tab out, went to what is that, displacement, new, and that just kind of gives you like a crumpled sort of leaf effect. You don't have to use this if you don't want to. Anyways, let's go ahead. I'll show you how to do the material for this one because it's not too difficult. Let me go to my compositor. And you can see I already have the leaf on the other plane that I have set there. Okay, so let me go in here. We do need to unwrap this, so let me select all those. Unwrap. And I'm going to add a texture, image texture. And I should already have it in here. Let me see if I can find it. Leaves. And let me show you what that looks like. Alright, so here is what we're looking at. This is the leaf that I found. It is a transparent background. This is very important when you're making leaves. You have to have a transparent background. However, it is very yellow, and I don't care for the yellow that much. So I'm going to go ahead and add a color hue saturation. Plug that in. Plug it in here. Actually, you know what? Forget that. Get rid of the hue saturation. If you want to use it, you can. I don't like it that much. I'm going to use a mix RGB instead. Just going to plug that into color 1, and for color 2, I'm going to turn green. A little bit more. A little bit more. And let's make it a little bit darker. Something like that. Okay, so to get the transparent background, I'm going to add a shader, transparent shader. Put that above our diffuse shader. And then we need a mix shader, so add shader, mix shader. Boop. We'll plug our transparent into the top and our diffuse into the bottom. And we'll take the alpha from the image texture, plug it right into the factor. Okay, why am I getting something weird? No, that's right. Yeah, we're right. Okay, alright. I think so. I hope so. Perhaps, maybe. So that's pretty much it. I'm actually not going to use this one. I just wanted to show you how to do it. This is the leaf I want to use, just because it's already set up on my particle system. So let me go back to my first layer, and I will show you what I did. So I went to edit mode for the tree. And make sure all of this stuff is turned off. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is to leave it in edit mode, and maybe even go into your see-through view, your wireframe view, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit C. That's going to give me like a brush to paint with almost, to select vertices with. I just want to select a lot of these vertices that I want leaves on. So anywhere I want leaves, I'm just going to paint and select those textures, or select those vertices. I'm just going to select these. Dun, 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 dun. Select those. Select these. Select a little bit up here at the top. Okay, so let's pretend like this is the only part that I want leaves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my vertex data tab, whatever you want to call it. And if you don't already have a group set up, go ahead and hit new group, the little plus sign. And for weight down here at the bottom, actually, I think it might already assign 1 to everything. Okay, well, we'll see. Anyways, if you turn your weight all the way up at 1, and with those vertices that you want the leaves on selected, just go ahead and hit assign. And if you've done it right, you should be able to go to weight paint mode, and all of these red parts are going to be where leaves are going to show up on your tree. And the blue parts obviously are not going to be where they're going to show up. I just found that that's an easy way of doing it. You could go into this mode, you could go into vertice or weight paint mode, and you could just paint. Unfortunately, you've got to paint from like multiple angles, and you've got to make sure that you're like constantly flipping your view around and making sure that everything's lining up all right, and make sure that you didn't paint over anything you didn't want to paint over. I just find it's more precise to just select the vertices and assign it down here with the group. And if you make a mistake, or if you find that there's something that you oops, hold on, edit mode. Okay, if you make a mistake and you find out that there's something you want to change, you don't want leaves in a certain area, you can always just set this weight, boop, right down to 0, select the vertices that you want to set back to not having leaves, and hit assign. It is just that easy. So once we have that, we are safe to basically add our particle system. So let me show you what I did with my particle system. Dun dun dun. I hate particle systems. I'm just going to tell you that right now. They never seem to want to turn out quite the way that you want them to turn out. Anyways, I went ahead and went to type, set to hair, click on advanced. You might have to play with the settings for how many particles there are. I set mine to 1,000. You might want to go more, you might want to go less. It's completely up to you. I went faces, random, and I clicked use modifier stack. For the emitter geometry, again, you might have to mess with this a little bit to make sure that your leaves are the right size. Mine is probably going to be slightly different than yours because you don't have the same reference image that I do. Go ahead and turn these on so you can see. This is basically what we're looking at right here. It just looks like a big jumbled mess, right? Anyways, let me go back to my particle system. Okay, we don't need to mess with anything else in velocity. We could probably turn on a rotation and give it a bit of a random value. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's that one. Maybe it's neither. Either way, you can give it a little bit of a random rotation. For the physics, all I did was add 1 or 0.01 to the Brownian factor. And make sure in the render settings that you have it set to object, and then select your leaf object. And down here in the vertex groups is the last one. This is density. You're going to select whatever the name is that you named your vertex group for your weight paint. So by default, I believe it names it group. So that is what mine is named, group in density. And that will make sure that the leaves are only spawning from the red portions of your tree. And aside from that, that should be absolutely everything for the particle system. That is pretty much it. That's the leaves, that is the leaves and the tree. The only thing I haven't covered is the actual materials for the tree itself, because it's, like I said, it's incredibly complicated. It's not fun, and it's going to take at least another 30 minutes of a video to explain how to do this, but I will make sure that I get that video out. It will probably be next week. So if you're interested, go ahead and stick around. If you already know what you're doing, then go ahead and, I don't know, get started. Why not? But it involves basically a lot of unwrapping. You got to like mark a lot of seams and unwrap it, and then you got to make another UV map and mark different seams and unwrap it again. It's a mess. Anyways, hopefully that does not discourage you from trying. This is actually a fairly nice project to work on. So for the lighting settings, I just went with an HDR image. Nothing too fancy with that. Let me go ahead and give this a render and just show you what I kind of basically have right now. Okay, so this is the not quite finished product, which I'm sure you're saying, yay, I'm glad it's not finished, it's not great. That's perfectly fine. This is just a quick unwrapping I just did for the bark, just to make it look a little bit more like a tree. There's a couple more things with the leaves that I would like to show you in the next part. That would include like randomizing the colors a little bit more, getting the light to interact with them just a little bit more, and then we'll go over how to actually make this bark and make it look correct. So if you want to join me for part 2, be prepared for that next week. That is a long tutorial, so make sure that you are ready for a long tutorial, and it's a little confusing. So if you guys have any questions about what we've gone over so far, make sure you drop it in my comments and I'll be sure to get back with you. And next week, make sure you do the same. If you have any problems, make sure that you comment and I will answer any questions that I can to try to help you complete this a little further. This can be a very, very interesting way of modeling trees if you can figure out how to do it correctly. So stick with me, guys. Part 2 will be coming soon. Thank you guys for watching.